There are quite a few things that will leave you stranded in your Land Rover. Could be all sorts of bits and pieces, but one of the big failings is the clutch fork. And this is a typical one that I've taken out when doing a job. It's actually fatigued and cracked round the pivot point. Usually these get hairline cracks here, and then the ball pushes through this little pivot ball here, it pops through, and then you're going nowhere. You can grind your gears, I suppose, and get home, but it's really sort of inconvenient. So the major manufacturers, and the major suppliers, should I say, in the United Kingdom now sell arms like this. This has got a little metal bar welded across it, but it still doesn't answer or address the problem of the friction on this ball in this socket. And if you've got heavy duty clutches and things like this, it makes the pedal kind of hard to push down. So what I came up with a few years ago is this idea. Now I sell these arms complete. I've got them on eBay at the moment, but now I've got my website up and running. I can actually offer now a better shipping price than eBay was offering. And basically what it is, it's a steel bush with a plastic insert, a nylon insert, and that's about it. It's very, very simple. I guarantee these for life, by the way, so you don't have to worry there, because in the last 5 years we've never had one fail yet. Fitted them all over, but not sold many in Europe or Australia, New Zealand or South Africa or wherever people drive the Land Rovers. But I'm trying to make this as cheap as possible for you guys. So what I've come up with this year is a little kit that you can do yourself. Now, if you can take the gearbox out of your Land Rover and replace the clutch, you can really easily fit this kit. So I'll open one up. Oh, it's just like Christmas. It's just like all your Christmases come at once. You've got a business card from me. That's worth its weight in gold. And it also tells you on there where my website is. So you can, if you want to buy some more. Well, you won't need any more after you bought this one. This is a CNC machined bush. It took us about 5 or 6 goes to get this right, to get the right measurements. We get them made here in Sherbrooke, and I just got a great big batch made this week. There's a nylon insert that goes into the bush, a clip that goes on the end of here, that for your pivot, for your push rod. These always break off, so I'm giving you a new one. 2 slippers. These are OEM ones, so they're made by the original equipment manufacturer, and they're very nice quality. A little staple. This staple fits in here, like this, and what it does is it keeps the clutch bearing, the thrust bearing, from falling off when you put your gearbox in, and after that it doesn't do anything at all. And a little steel rivet. Now I'm including the steel rivet with this one, but you could actually fit a pop rivet in there as long as it's a steel pop rivet, because that's 3/16. You could even put a nut and bolt in if you want. But anyway, what I'm going to do today is show you how to fit this kit. And before we do that, you're going to say, oh Mike, that looks really expensive. Well, it isn't, because I've been trying to cut this to the bone, and I can do them for $29.99 Canadian plus shipping. All this is plus shipping, but it's going to be really dirt cheap to send all over the world. So it's $16.70 British pounds, $23.10 American, $29.80 Australia, or $18.75 euros. Now I don't know about you, but when I was in England, I don't think $16.70 will buy a first class stamp now. So it is pretty cheap, but it's going to save you a load of tears if this goes wrong. And believe me, it does give a really nice smooth pedal. So we're going to take a brand new arm, which is here. You can actually, this is the beauty about this kit. If you've got this, you can simply just grind this out and pop my bush in it. You don't need to buy a new one. All you've got to do is make sure that these pivots are straight, and this is parallel, it's not twisted or bent. And usually we don't get much of a problem with this socket on here. So let's get on with it and I'll show you how we do it. Now you may be wondering why I've jammed my hammer in the vise. Well, that's simply just, I don't do this all the time, but it's just to show you how you can clamp this in to your vise without damaging anything and keeping it nice and rigid. Because you're either going to chisel off this little rivet, or as I do, I take the die grinder to it and I'm going to take off that rivet. Now I'm not going to do this whilst we're filming because it'll make too much noise. So I'm going to grind it off and then we'll go to the next step. Once you've ground the head off the rivet, try not to dig too deep into this sprung steel clip. It's hardened steel, so it will be a bit resistive to your efforts with grinding. And next thing we're going to do is knock out the rivet, and we must keep this clip. So the next thing we need to do, take a punch and a hammer and try and find the centre of that rivet and knock it out. There you go. So you're going to keep that clip, you're going to use that again. But once you've punched out this piece and the rivet, the next thing is we're going to just take the grinder and grind that dimple down a bit. Now there's two reasons why we do this. First of all, as if you can see, it stands a little bit proud, so when you put it on your drill press it will be difficult to balance and get level. And most importantly is that these are a little bit hard, these arms, and what happens is that you'll find your drill bit or your pilot drill bit in your hole saw won't go through. Now you don't always have to use a hole saw, you can use your die grinder, you can use anything really that's going to cut a hole. And the holes are round about 1 inch, and I say round about that for a simple reason. I make these bushes just a little bit larger than 1 inch, and I'll show you the reason why later. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set this in the vise and we're going to grind off the top of this little pressing here. So there you are, you've just ground off the top of that, almost level. You can see if I can run a straight edge across it, it's almost level. It isn't all the way through though. So next, what we're going to do is going to pop over to the drill press. Because I do quite a few of these, I made a little jig out of a bit of plywood and some bits of timber I had kicking about, just to hold the V in place, because it's very difficult to put in a vise. It's one of those downsides of things really. So if I made this, I do about batches of about 40 at a time. So it's quite easy to do. So what I've done is I've put a little bit of oil in the centre of the dimple a bit, just to give it a little bit of lubrication. And then I'm going to drop the drill bit down. And I've already done the hole in the middle, so here we go. Just slowly. This old drill press wobbles around a bit. I've had it must have had it nearly 20 years. So that's it drilled through, and let's have a look and see how we've got for accuracy. Not bad, not bad at all. So now we're going to go back to the bench and we'll do the final fitting. So after the drill press, we put it in the vise, and this isn't too bad. It's a couple of thousandths of an inch this way, but it's not too bad. We can get away with that. But because I said we've done these about 5 or 6 times, we made this just a little bit bigger than the hole saw. And the reason for that was that you can you've got a little bit of wiggle room to move this bush wherever you want to do. Or should I say wherever you want to be. There is a slight chamfer on that, so it's not recommended to press it in straight away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my die grinder, and just open up this hole. You can use a file, it doesn't really matter, or a Dremel or whatever you've got, but it is kind of interesting, you know, important that you do get this fitting nice and snug. So because this makes a lot of noise, I'm going to stop the video now and then come back when we're fitted. So I'm quite happy that that is now absolutely dead centre, and all I'm going to do now is just take off any burrs that's on the inside. Like that. And then we're going to take the bushing, we're going to open the vise up, and then taking a socket, we're going to make sure that because the bush is going to push through the arm a little bit. Alright, so because that's not in its way, so square it up. Don't hit the edge of the bush, don't hit it like that, hit it square at the bottom and it will go in. Like that. See? Lovely. Now, it can be a little bit loose, and this is why I put a flange on here, so you've got a little bit of wiggle room on there. So the bush is in. I hope you saw that because I don't know where the camera was. Here we go. So now the next step is I like to put just a couple of tack welds in just to hold it in place, just to be sure. So that's the next step. Once the weld is cool, you can simply push in your bush, and if it's a little bit snug fit, again take your socket, tap it in. That was easy. You mustn't weld the bush in with the nylon already inserted in the bush. It'll melt it and then you'll ruin it. I have plenty of these, so if you ever need to replace this bush, just let me know. So the next step, and the final step, is to put the rivet back in. To put the rivet back in, I simply put an old bolt in the vise. I take the rivet and I put it into the largest hole, push it through with your finger, hold that on the hold the spring down, and then what I do at the back of the vise, because I use my vise for this, I set up a block of wood and some little shims, so it's all the same height. This bit can be a bit fiddly, but this is why I'm saying now perhaps a pop rivet's a better idea. And there you go. So now you're ready to peen that rivet over. So what I do is that first of all I'll start it off not hitting you, using the ball peen hammer and not hitting your fingers. And slowly that'll start to make a mushroom over the top of here so that the spring clip doesn't come off. Usually I use an air chisel to do this operation. I haven't got one, but if you want, just take if you're getting down to this stage now where you can't quite get into it, just take a chisel bit and hit it over like that. And if it's just a little bit loose, look, just keep at it. Just hit it a bit more. You want to get that clip nice and tight. I'm going to change to a flatter headed punch. That's getting there. Make sure you've got the right one. There, that's what you want. So that basically in a nutshell is done. it's ready for fitting. It was as simple as that. So, a couple of word cautionary notes on fitting. You must use a white lithium grease in all these pivot points, all these here. Now I can't supply lithium grease, and I've been trying to find it in little sachets, but I haven't had much luck to do it in such small quantities. But really, that's all it is. That's all there is to it. That's ready to fit to the car. I'm going to do a little bit more in a minute or two about the pivot balls and how important it is to make sure that they're nice and snug and tight in the housing. All right, so well, let's go and see if we can find one. There's two different types of pivot ball on the Land Rover. There's this type, and there's this type. This is a 300 TDI, and this is off your 200 TDIs or your 2.5s. These are actually quite good. These don't really go wrong all that much, but things to watch is any wear on this ball here. But the 300 TDI ones are even worse for being reliable, because in the early days they used to put aluminium ones in. These are ones I've just found in the scrap, and you can see that this isn't even a tight press fit. It is a little loose, but I think what happens with them is because they're aluminium and all the pressure of this arm rocking backwards and forwards, it tends to make these loose, which is more of a point which I was saying about the friction on here. The more friction that you can eliminate, the better and tighter this is going to be. However, Land Rover solution, as usual, they make cast iron ones. These are a lot better. But you've still got to make sure that the ball is a nice tight fit. And that's not a bad one, actually. So stay clear of the aluminium ones. These aren't all that expensive, but like I say, you've just got to make sure that that ball is nice and shiny. Let's see if I can give it a polish on my coat. See, it's nice and shiny, it's nice and clean, no nicks and rubs. Also, in the bottom of the 300 TDI, there are some dowels here and here. You must make sure that those dowels are correctly in place, because if not, the arm will move around. You don't want that. On the old 200 TDIs and the TD5, on the earlier vehicles, the 2.5s, these were a lot more rigid. They didn't put any dowels in, but I think it's because the pivot ball is actually very close to the centre of the ball, if you see what I mean. I can't spit it out. It's actually 5 o'clock in the morning. So, and I think because of this tube, the leverage is too much, so, and for the alignment, so they put some dowels in. You must make sure the dowels are in. So I hope you like that. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask. If clubs want to buy these things, feel free, no problems at all. I'll do a little discount on bulk purchases. But really, like I say, I sell the arms. If you think that's a little bit too difficult, I do sell the arms on the website, already complete. They're a little bit more expensive, but like I said, because I've got to ship them all the way from the UK. So there you go, hope you like that. Bye now.